Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Do you know, folks, today is St. Lucia Independence Day, and she does not celebrate it because St. Lucia ripped off the Star Trek logo for its national flag. How dare they? She is the she-devil with a slingshot. She is the Khaleesi of BC. She is Drea Humphrey. How you doing there, Drea?
Hi, everybody. It's also Ash Wednesday today, too.
Well, yes, but I mean, that goes without saying. That's why Sheila, the she-devil Gunn Reid, is not here today, right? She's, well, is celebrating the right term for Ash Wednesday?
Apparently
observing
not. Let us know in the comments. Yeah. Taking time for, I think, would be the right way to say it.
And by the way, folks, I wasn't kidding about St. Lucia's national flag representing the Starfleet logo. See, there it is. Look at that. It's even the same color, black and gold. That's what you'd see on the classic Kirk uniform. And Mr. Producer, do we have an actual Star Trek logo that we can show the folks? Okay, there you go. It's the same thing. I mean,
it literally is. You weren't kidding.
When they came up with their independent nation's flag, they said, what are we going to put in the middle of it? And somebody said, well, we don't want to break the budget on getting a graphic designer. Hey, that looks pretty cool on Captain Kirk. Why don't we just use the Star Trek logo? But then again, maybe there's some synergy there, Drea. Maybe St. Lucia can be home to a Star Trek convention. Maybe this is a money-making opportunity for the little island. What do you think?
Well, aside from doing this, I don't know anything about Star Trek. Like, literally nothing. So, other than you nailed it. You nailed it with the flag. It does look exactly the same. So,
you know what? I'm so jealous, Drea. I cannot do the Spockian live long and prosper hand signal. In fact, I think the last time I tried it, well, let's put it this way. Someone thought I was giving them the middle finger, and I almost didn't live long nor prosper. So it's good for you. You've got the right capacity to do that. But in any event, before we meander into the neutral zone, why don't you tell the folks here what it is we're endeavoring to do, Drea?
Well, it's our daily roundup. As you might have guessed from the title and the thumbnail, a lot of Trudeau is going down. You're not going to want to miss. He's been up to a lot, which means we have a lot to talk about. We give you the daily sort of news update. And there is a fun way you can communicate with us and be a part of the show, which is by giving us chats. Rumble's a good place to do so, Odyssey as well. And if you do the paid chats and it's $5 or more, we do our best to read that out, make you part of the show. And it also contributes to our journalism, which is completely independent of the government and completely dependent on you. So thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, and speaking of the government, the big enchilada himself, Prime Minister Trudeau, was at it was a carpenters union headquarters in York region. First of all, I want to say this, Drea. We knew what time he was going to be there, namely 5:15. We knew it was in York region. But what this party is doing now, whether it's Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, or just about anyone, they don't disclose the actual location. York region is huge. I live in York region. It's a ginormous region. And this goes against the rules. And they've already been told that, unless it's a private cabinet retreat, you have to disclose where and when. And when I say where, I don't mean York region. which is probably hundreds of square kilometers in substance, Drea, but that the fact that he was at the Carpenters Union on Roundtree Dairy Road, as per usual, somebody who hasn't drunk the Kool-Aid tips us off of where to go, and the protesters were tipped off too. And by the way, Drea, this is exactly why the Justin Trudeau Liberals are blatantly breaking the rules. They don't want to be greeted by demonstrators. They are so thin-skinned, and they believe their own propaganda that they are the anointed ones, that the idea of coming in front of several dozen demonstrators protesting is too triggering for them. And, to me, it's staggering, Drea. You're the Prime Minister. You should have a thick skin. And what is the rationale for breaking these rules? Well, we know they break almost every rule in the book, but they've already been censured on this, and yet they continue to break this rule with impunity. What's your take on this?
I think he's gotten away with breaking a lot of rules. So what's adding one more to the pile, right? And I know that this is happening with the fundraisers as well. It's already untouchable to the average citizen. His fundraisers can go as high as $1,000 a plate, at least when he comes out here to BC. But so they can't talk to him that way. And you're right, somebody tips them off. But in my experience out here in BC, they get tipped off last second. And so he gets greeted this way very spontaneously. It's very organic. And that's going to say something to you as a leader, that even when you are breaking the rules, dodging the people, your own citizens, they are still finding you. Often it's in the winter, they're coming out in the cold, and they're coming out to just let you know how dissatisfied they are with how you're running the country. So thick skin or not, you'd think he would say, you know what, it's time to change.
Yeah, and this poses no physical threat to him, Drea. Unless you think that words are weaponized, or signage is weaponized, or flags are weaponized. By the way, my favorite flag yesterday, Drea, I hope we have a clip of it. It was when I first saw the fellow coming, I thought he was a counter-protester because his flag said end racism. Implying that these demonstrators are racist. And then when the flag got closer, and it was a beauty, the logo on the flag was Prime Minister Trudeau in full blackface.
Oh, I need that one. I need that flag.
I want to get one too, So it was quite hilarious, and of course there were many Canadian flags there, some right side up, some upside down. Which, by the way, folks, contrary to what some might tell you, that's not a sign of disrespect. That's a symbol of distress. And I think right now, for many people, they are in distress in Canada, trying to live their lives with the Justin Trudeau policies. And of course, lest I forget, a smattering of F. Trudeau flags. So I assume Aaron O'Toole is curled up in the fetal position because his New Year's wish of stop being mean to Mr. Trudeau, don't display those flags. I guess it hasn't come true. What an absolute disgrace, Drea. Can you imagine that was his essay on New Year's Day, where he didn't. Talk about not knowing the room, right? Go after demonstrators for an F. Trudeau flag. No wonder Aaron O'Toole is yesterday's man.
Well, and people have reported in Parliament that Trudeau himself said the F-bomb in Parliament.
Yes.
So if he seems to think that language is fine to use in the Parliament, what's to be so offended about? I personally don't use the word. But like you said, this isn't violence. They are not hurting him. And so if you don't like the flag, you don't like the flag, but you just move on for it. And O'Toole, it was just a joke. It didn't surprise me. I don't know who he's sucking up to or what, but it says a lot about him.
And you know what it most says about him? What a hypocrite and what a double standard purveyor he is, Drea, because the reason why he was denouncing the F. Trudeau flags, can't we bring back civility? Can't we have some decorum? And if you recall a couple of years ago, Drea, this is a guy who recorded a video outside the Parliament buildings of an outhouse. And he's saying this is going to be Justin Trudeau's next office once he's voted out, right? Well, first of all, O'Toole was so insipid and such a flip-flopper that he shot himself in the foot. But I mean, like, you're calling for decorum and civility, and you're doing a porta potty joke. And by the way, the sound quality, because of the wind, was so horrible. The whole thing was a disaster. So, like, physician, heal thyself. But before we go on, why don't we show a short 1-minute clip of the greeting that Mr. Trudeau received last night.
Of the worst kind. You would not acknowledge us in Ottawa 1 year ago. Stop following you around until you hear us. We are your people, and we have a voice. This is how democracy works, my friend. The anti-liberation agenda is what it is. I'm sorry to interrupt your party, Carpenters Union, but you're harboring a terrorist. A dictator of the worst kind! Mr. Trudeau, were you involved?
Oh, yes.
This is a democracy! You have not sold my daughter's future! You belong in prison, not in power! Come say hi!
And by the way, Drea, as you saw, we weren't on the driveway or the parking lot.
Right.
We were told if we did that, we'd be charged with trespassing. So we were on the opposite part of the curb. And then they changed the rules. They said, and they actually said this, you have to be, you see where I am right now, on the other side of the tree line. They actually called it that, the tree line. Not
tree line.
Yeah, not the tree line in Canada where, the trees stop growing when you get to a certain northern latitude. But, I think they make up these rules as they go along because I don't have an official city plan, but I know part of that berm where everybody was standing is indeed property of the city of Vaughan. But anyways, he just gets out of his car, as you can see, and does that goofy smile and wave and just slithers in to the Carpenters Union. And I want to also point out, as you can see, Drea, there's his entourage of vehicles. Almost all of them are full-size, I should say extra size, Chevy Suburbans with 8-cylinder engines, burning, not to use another Star Trek reference, they're not powered by dilithium crystals, but fossil fuels. And get a load of this. They stay idling for the 90-minute plus time he's there because, Drea, God forbid Prime Minister Blackface McGroper gets into an SUV that's less than room temperature, right? So the point I'm getting at is that they're advocating electric vehicles, and they don't even have, plug-in hybrid vehicles. They've got old school, full-size SUVs burning fossil fuels. The hypocrisy is off the charts, my friend.
It's so bad, and it's always like that wherever he goes. And you're right. Sometimes they do laps and laps around. I guess they're, checking the area. But why not an e-car at this point in time? You know what I mean? And then he always has to do that signature wave. It doesn't matter who's out there. He's got no friends out there. And he's still like this, just in case there's a mainstream media camera, floating around there. Like, it's every time. Who's he waving at? The Rebel News camera? I don't think so.
Oh,
but
no.
He just does it every time.
Oh, make no mistake, Drea. The mainstream media, they weren't freezing their ball bearings off on the outside of that building. They were, tucked in on the inside and getting fed and you name it. Those are the official state-funded and state-approved propagandists. And they get a red carpet welcome to a Trudeau event because, hey, they know where their money's coming from. Justin Trudeau is their sugar daddy. And does it make sense to bite the hand that feeds?
No, not for them. Not when integrity isn't a concern of yours, that's for sure.
And, in a way, thank goodness there were some state-funded shills inside that building, because I got to find out what Justin Trudeau was talking about. By the way, we got a video. There he is. Now, I get a laugh out of blackface here, because this is what he always does when he goes to a auto assembly plant or to a blue-collar trade union hall. He gets rid of his jacket. He loosens his tie. He rolls his shirt sleeves up. It's like, hey, I'm just like you. I'm a common man with a common van. Drea, I don't think this guy knows how to even hold a hammer correctly.
Well, Jagmeet Singh does this too. I don't know if you've noticed. He keeps talking about, the bad people with money, the corporate people, and then he takes off his Rolex and he puts on like a little t-shirt and has his little TikTok video with his energy drink as he's saying it, and it's like, we see you all the time. Who are you hiding from? You know what I mean? Like, just be real.
It's so funny. It reminds me of the 2016 election campaign in the United States, and when you had Hillary Clinton, depending on what region she was in, for example, if she went out to the Midwest, she's suddenly speaking with a Midwest twang and using Midwest slang. And I'm thinking, are you serious? Do you think the rubes are buying this, right? And if she goes further south, it's a Southern accent. And this idea that I am one of you, when nothing could be further from the truth. You're an elitist, you're a globalist, you don't care about common people, you're in a different universe. It's shocking. But there were some media on the inside. And get a load of this from Alicia Hasham of the Toronto Star, which of course is state-funded and approved media. Apparently the focus of Trudeau's speech was to compare Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre to former U.S. President Donald Trump. And I'm thinking, Drea, talk about not knowing the room. If I'm a working man, if I'm a carpenter, Donald Trump was a friend to the working class. Under his regime, what did we have? We had record low unemployment. There was no inflation, low interest rates, energy independence. Energy projects were not being canceled. And if I'm a carpenter, I'm going, if you're comparing Poilievre to Trump, isn't that a good thing?
It's like, yeah, what's your point? And I mean, they're not even similar at all, too. So I don't think that's lost on people as well. I mean, Pierre is very collected in his thoughts and how he communicates. And, Trump is Trump. So it's a poor analogy at best. And you're right. It's not an insult.
Yeah, we're into the third year of the Biden administration, and it's been a disaster. I mean, what it reminds me of in this province, Drea, people on the left, when it comes to whatever it is, healthcare or infrastructure, you name it, they go, well, going back to the Mike Harris years, Mike Harris ended his premiership at the beginning of the new millennium. I mean, it's been more than 20 years. You're still blaming Mike Harris, which was a pretty darn good premier, let me tell you. He said what he meant and meant what he said, except for not privatizing the LCBO. I don't know what made him, go native on that promise. But in any event, the idea of forever blaming the prior regime, I mean, I think Biden, what the U.S. is enduring right now in terms of energy independence, inflation, interest rates, unemployment, these are self-inflicted wounds by the president.
Right. It's far worse right now. And I think Americans are catching on to that. But who knows what Canadians are thinking in that area? Because when Trump was, the president, our media was so focused on slandering him all the time. Like they were just letting Canadian news go to the wayside. Well, they would just focus on him. And so they don't do that with Biden, obviously. So if you're not really tapped into those politics, you might not know what's going on there, really. But those who are can see right through it. And they see Trudeau's lips moving, but they know that it's just hot air coming out.
Yep, Trump was the big bad boogeyman, and I think the very worst thing that happened, because you were talking about the media, playing up Trump as a villain, and that was the Canadian journalist for freedom of expression. And their head honcho at the time, I don't know if there has been a change, but he was actually trying to lobby the government, the association that is, Drea, to ban Donald Trump from coming to Canada. This is the Canadian journalist for freedom of expression. Wow. I mean, are they getting the words freedom and censorship confused somehow, Drea?
Clearly. I mean, is it at all surprising in Canada anymore that they're trying to censor people? But I think my thing with the media, because before I was with Rebel and I wasn't really paying too much to what was happening with Trump, I was like, is he really racist? And I remember they had said that he called basically all Mexican racist. And I think that was the worst thing that they did. Because when you went and watched the whole video, he was talking about that violent gang for which the president of Mexico agreed with, on how he summarized them. But they just snipped it and made it look so bad. Like, it was just so horrible.
It's not just bad and horrible, Drea. It's unethical and immoral. Yeah. I mean, if you're a journalist and it's about the public's right to know, and you're skewing the message to make it look like the president is saying something that he didn't.
Something so bad.
It's unethical. Yeah. And meanwhile, they cover for Joe Biden. I mean, look what's coming out with the Twitter investigations of the former Twitter head honchos about how they suppressed Hunter Biden's laptop story. They actually, the New York Post, which does fantastic journalism, they actually had their Twitter account suspended for reporting the truth. And had that been Donald Trump's son with that kind of a laptop, that leads, on the front page. But welcome to left-wing hypocrisy. That's what they're all about. We have to break for an ad, and we'll go back to a few more Trudeau clips. Have your paper bag that you find on an aircraft nearby, just in case you just can't take it.
If you want to look good and shine like me, you can do so at our store. Go to ribbonnewstore.com. On this website, you have so much different style to wear, as this one, my favorite one, Justin Castro. With my code Alexa10, you will have 10% off on your next purchase. So don't hesitate, go now and look so good like me.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
Well, I love that Freedom Passport, Drea. Yeah. It's a handy little thing to have. And wow, our colleague Alexa Lavoie looks like a French-Canadian Gap model, I would say, with that beautiful Justin Castro T-shirt. That's our top-selling T-shirt, by the way, folks. And
I have never gotten so many compliments on anything like I have when I wear that shirt. But my sweater's also from here. It's got my favorite color from rebelnewsstore.com. It's got the purple in it. I really love this. Make Canada Great Again. But when you wear that Trudeau shirt, so many people stop you and they're like, I like your shirt. Where'd you get it? So definitely highly recommended.
Drea, as I've said before on the live stream, not only compliments, but Lady Menzoid wears that all the time. And on 3 separate occasions at 3 different retailers, the employee was so grateful for that. Lady Menzoid actually got a discount, didn't even ask for it. So folks, you can make money with our merchandise. That shirt has more than paid for itself. And the funniest one was she was in a Walmart once wearing that, and a guy went by her and his eyes were narrowed, right? And then he circled by again and he still got that really, cringe look on his face. And Lady Menzoid's thinking, I don't want to get into a scene here. I just want to do my shopping. and then he came closer, and the meanness in his face evaporated, and he had a big smile, and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought that was a pro Justin Trudeau shirt. Now I see what it is." So she's making new friends, and you can too, folks. So.
Oh, man. Do people wear pro Justin Trudeau shirts? Has that ever been a thing? I don't know.
You know what? That's a great point. I don't think I've ever, you know what? Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen it. He must have his supporters. We know that. He's won 3 elections.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the last one being with the help of communist China, of course. But a W is a W, as they say in the sports world. But why don't we go to another clip of Trudeau? It was very cold last night, except for Trudeau. He was indoors, and except for his suburban SUV, which kept the motor running all the time. But Trudeau says people across the world are facing climate anxiety. What does that mean? They're afraid of freezing rain today? I don't know. Let's check it out.
And also just the bounce back of our economy with so many jobs created after we came out of the pandemic has put pressures on cost of living, on inflation, interest rates going up to try and keep inflation down, mixed in with the general challenges that people are facing around the world, whether it's anxiety about climate change, anxiety about the pace of change and transformation of our communities, our businesses, our world. The rate of how things are changing around the world is really destabilizing. And that's something that people are going through all around the world right now. And one of the challenges that we're facing as communities is how to hold together.
Drea, are you suffering from climate anxiety?
Before I answered that, I was trying to get a good look because it looked like one of the guys was just smirking the whole time he was talking while he was filming. I'd love to see what his Facebook post was. He's over to the left somewhere. But you know what? Is it climate anxiety or anxiety about how the government's going to hit us financially over climate? That might be something people are anxious about. But I think when it comes to the youth and the kids, unfortunately, in some ways, this is a real thing that's been created by the government. They call it eco-anxiety. There are students who actually have mental health issues because of this. And why wouldn't they? If they're in an environment, maybe with a teacher who talks about this all the time, they're not given any hope. They're told, unless you fix everything everybody else does and how everything runs in Canada and the society, there is no future. We're all dead. So it is becoming a real thing, unfortunately, as they push it and push it. But something tells me in that room, to the people he's talking to, I don't think they're buying it. I don't think there's climate anxiety in there.
Indeed, I think the climate anxiety is for another reason, i.e. carbon taxes. I mean, think of that audience.
Yeah.
They're carpenters, Drea. And when we saw them leaving the parking lot, what are they driving? Ram pickups, Ford F-150, Chevy Silverados. They need to haul around their tools, their lumber, etc. So when gas prices keep going up, when carbon taxes keep going up, this guy is taking a bite out of their income. I'm wondering, does anyone buy what this guy is selling? And I say that because we were asking the carpenters as they were coming out of the venue, and we heard from several of them that they weren't allowed to speak to the media. Somebody laid down that mandate.
What?
Including 2 young guys who said, "We love Rebel News, but we can't say anything." And they jumped in their truck and did a burnout out of the parking lot, as if to suggest that even being seen in our presence might hinder their careers. You know, it just kills me, Drea, how Trudeau and his enablers are so hell-bent on controlling the narrative that they would say to these people, supposedly in a dominion with free expression and free press and freedom of speech, do not talk to the media. Do not say anything bad. It's baffling to me, Drea.
Yeah, it's all a facade. And could we expect anything less from a drama teacher? That's what it is. It's all a show. I mean, you said so yourself, they weren't even allowed to talk to you. So who knows what these people are thinking in their heads? I mean, I don't think they're buying it. I wish we could see that. Oh, there he is. He's in the background there. Anyways, I'm going to let it go. But they're smirking as he's talking. So, yeah, he can roll up his sleeves all he wants and control the media, what people can hear. But we're seeing through it. Canadians are seeing what's really happening at a rapid pace these days.
And, I wish there was someone there with more than a off-putting smirk. I wish there was someone with the testicular fortitude to actually give Trudeau a piece of his mind. But then again, you know how it works, Drea. You get doxxed. You might have your bank account frozen. You might get arrested for hate speech. It's just too bad not one single carpenter in that building yesterday really gave that Prime Minister what for in terms of his policies that work against working Canadians. Let's face it, especially in the blue-collar trades. We should go on to another clip. It's Trudeau bragging about record-high immigration levels. I wonder if he's including, how many was it, 39,000 people that immigrated to Canada via Roxham Road last year, Drea? I wonder if he includes that in the immigration total. Let's see what Blackface has to say about this.
But the other thing is, we need more people to come in. I mean, one of the big questions that we get all the time is, as our government is raising immigration levels to the highest levels they've ever been. In a few years, we'll be bringing in 500,000 people a year. People are like, well, we already are facing challenges in housing. Where are we going to house these 500,000 people a year? Well, a lot of those people will be able to contribute in the building trades. A lot of those people, particularly now that we are targeting, we've made changes in our immigration system that allow us to target more specifically areas where there are skill shortages or trades shortages. I was just talking about some of the training centers that you guys have in Portugal and other places that will allow people to get up to skills even before they come to Canada so that they can hit the ground running, which is what we need as soon as they get here. So these are things we're looking on. We need to renew our population. We need to renew our workforce. Everywhere around the world, in developed countries, the population is aging. It's a real challenge for everyone. Canada is facing less of a challenge than others because we're still growing through immigration. But there's more to do.
Well, Dre, I call him as I see it, and he's half right. Indeed, our birth rate is lower than 2.0, which is what you need to sustain a country's population in terms of those in the workforce as opposed to those in retirement homes. However, this lackadaisical approach, especially with illegal aliens coming into the country. I love how he's saying this is going to help the building trades. If I'm a carpenter, working on a daily basis and getting a paycheck and paying my taxes, I'm kind of wondering, well, if that illegal alien broke the law right off the bat getting into this country, maybe this is the kind of guy that's working on the sly for cash, not paying taxes, not contributing to the federal coffers, and maybe undercutting me because I have to pay taxes. So maybe some of these people Trudeau is lauding is going to put me and my brothers and sisters out of a gig.
Well, it's a fair question. I mean, and then you talk about the population, how we're decreasing in numbers. And then I can't help but think of we're allowing ads to come here that are teaching our young people who are going to have kids that the best thing they can do for their child is not have another. And then meanwhile, he's saying, bring everybody in to do this. And I feel like as he was saying that, he was struggling himself to believe the words that were coming out. There was this, he always pauses, but it just seems like he's not even buying it himself. And I always think it's linked to votes as well. He's thinking of future votes so he can live on forever, right? It benefits him to bring people because then he's the guy who brought them here. You're grateful for that automatically.
Drea, you are 100% right in my book, and you'll never see this in the mainstream media, but this is indeed a opportunity for the Liberals to change the demography of Canada. I mean, they're basically saying to illegal aliens, come on in, no problem. You're hashtag welcome to Canada. And the quid pro quo is that every 4 years, just remember, it's Team Red that got you here.
That got you here.
That's right.
And we'll let your family get here. Because once you get here, you want the rest of your family here. So of course we're not done. You know what I mean? There's plenty more to come, right? I think we 100%. Have a chat, if I can read it, for those of you who are just tuning in now. If you want to be a part of this and get into the conversation, you can go to Rumble or Odyssey. And if you do a paid donation chat, I call it, because it contributes to our journalism of $5 more, we read it out. So AMT60 says, are any of the rebels going to Christine Anderson's event tonight at the Whitby Christian College? I missed out on tickets. Will the event be recorded and uploaded anywhere? Saw some vids from Alberta tour. So for those of you who don't know who Christine Anderson is, she's a member of the European Parliament who has come all the way to Canada. She's so concerned about what's happened to Canadians under the Trudeau regime that she's out here and just really feeling sorry for us. But yes, that's right. We have covered a lot of it through Alberta. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think we're going to be there tonight, but there's more to come with her as well. And I would imagine her event tonight is going to be recorded at some capacity. Anything else we want to add to that?
Oh, absolutely, Drea. On Monday, I attended Family Fringy Day on a farm, a private farm, somewhere halfway between Hamilton and Cambridge. And Christine Anderson was there, and she very graciously gave up about 25 minutes of her time. I had an exclusive Q&A with her. So that video should be coming out soon. And she's a wonderful lady. She's a German politician who has taken an interest in Canada, and especially Justin Trudeau, calling him, I believe the words were, a disgrace to democracy. And, it was very interesting, this Family Fringy Day. This was to mark, the first anniversary of the Trucker Freedom Convoy in Ottawa. And I found it, Drea, even though it was, very family friendly and there was a wonderful, joyous vibe, at that farm, I found it bittersweet. And I'll tell you why. If you're going to commemorate the first anniversary of the Trucker Freedom Convoy, you would do it on Wellington Street in front of the Parliament buildings and not hundreds of kilometers away close to Steeltown. But the reason is you look around and there was a handful of trucks, including the iconic crane truck with the giant maple leaf flag, that were part of that demonstration. And we all know what would happen if they showed up on Wellington Street, even for a protest lasting a few hours. They would be arrested, maybe violently. They would be fined. They would have their rigs towed away. They might even have their bank accounts frozen. So here is the new rules, folks, when it comes to having a demonstration in Canada that runs contrary to the Liberal Party of Canada. You can demonstrate all you want, but not in the town square, not on a public street. You're going to have to go to private property. And I just wonder how long that's going to last, Drea, before the authorities go, we drove by and we saw some F Trudeau flags. That's kind of insulting. I guess that's the next step in the narrative of these censorious thugs with the Liberals. But I just found it sad that way, Drea, that is where this commemoration had to take place.
Yeah, it is sad, and especially for a family-friendly protest. And it's just a sign of where Canada is with the freedom to peacefully assemble. I mean, I remember watching in other countries protesters who were peaceful being attacked, and that's what has happened in Canada. And so, and of course, it's also sad with the Public Inquiry Commission's ruling as well. So, yeah. But at least it shows that we're not giving up. We're still going. And again, we are still peaceful.
100%. And I got to tell you, Christine Anderson was actually deeply moved. She got into a truck at Vaughan Mills in York Region, and drove all the way to this private farm. Well, she wasn't driving, she was the passenger. And she was greeted not only with several Canadian flags, but the flags of Germany too. And
Nice.
I think she
That's
teared
awesome.
up a bit by that. She wasn't expecting that kind of, grassroots Canadian hospitality. And it was a wonderful day, and at least we can still commemorate these events on private property. But like I said, Drea, it might only be a matter of time before that gets shut down too, because one of the failings of our Constitution is that private property rights are not guaranteed at all. In fact, the government can freely expropriate property. But that's a subject for another day. Before we go to our next ad break, let's go to our last clip, thankfully, of Justin Trudeau.
Get it out of our system.
Yeah, I think of that line, he speak with forked tongue, because he seems to say we need to support illegal immigrants from Roxham Road, but we also have to discourage it at the same time. What? Let's check it out.
People have confidence that we have an immigration system that works, that there are rules to follow, that people come here and, come because they're qualified. And because we have two big oceans, well, three big oceans on all three sides of us, and a very attractive and warmer country immediately to our south, we haven't, in our history over the past many decades, had a lot of irregular migration, which causes people in the States and in Europe to be a little more worried about immigrants coming. So it's nothing innately Canadian that we're nicer or more generous. We've just had a certain amount of luck as a country to not have to deal with too much irregular migration. Over the past years, we've had a higher number of people coming in through Roxham Road in Quebec, which has caused a certain amount of consternation. Not so much that we can't handle, but we have to be really present to make sure that we're supporting people as they come through, while discouraging them from doing that at the same time.
What in blue hell did he say in that almost 1 minute long clip, Drea? No, our Canadian immigration system is not working when, as I said, last year we had some 39,000 illegal immigrants come into Canada. So right off the bat, you're breaking the law. But the Royal Canadian Mounted Police become the Royal Canadian Mounted Bellhops. They actually carry their luggage in. It's a disgrace. This should be ended. I mean, this is all due to the Safe Third Party Agreement, in which once you are a migrant in a so-called safe country, that's where your journey ends. And you know, Drea, that a couple of years ago, when this Roxham Road disaster first happened, this was Justin Trudeau taking a pot shot at Donald Trump, because under mean Donald Trump, migrants weren't safe in the United States of America. But there's been regime change. You got the Biden Democrats.
Yeah.
The southern border is a sieve, for God's sakes. People are, hundreds of people are coming in every day. So and also I want to understand the genesis of this agreement. Why does it only apply, Drea, to regular border crossings and not so-called irregular border crossing? That is a enormous loophole. Why the drafters of this agreement, didn't they think this was going to be exploited?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps that's intentional. I don't know. I can only theorize that. But he also throws in the Roxham Road. He's like, oh yeah, nothing that we can't control. Well, how are you controlling it? It's this gaping portal that everybody knows about, to the point that you've got New York giving people bus tickets to get through it. And you're saying that it's not something you can control. Again, hot air is coming out and it's getting too hot. But I don't know about the irregular versus regular. Like, when you say irregular, that means illegal, correct?
Correct, yeah. I've always thought, Drea, that irregular pertained to, I don't know, sometimes at the discount bin I pick up a pair of irregular socks. I've never called a person irregular, right? You're either legal or illegal, right?
It's just playing down what it actually is when you say irregular, right? So, it's just a joke.
Irregular. What a joke. Drea, we have to pause for a brief ad, and then we'll bring it back on the other side. With something. Maybe Liberal MP Anthony Housefather, again, saying something that may or may not make sense.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
If you want to look good and shine like me, you can do so at our store. Go to ribbonnewstore.com. On this website, you have so much different style to wear, as this one, my favorite one, Justin Castro. With my code Alexa10, you will have 10% off on your next purchase. So don't hesitate, go now and look so good like me.
Alexa always looks good. Drea, we got to throw to a clip of Anthony Housefather. You know, one of the themes of our show today has been about Prime Minister Trudeau controlling the narrative, censorship, the media in the pocket of the Liberal government of Canada. And, Anthony Housefather, he's a good little Liberal trained seal. Just wait till you hear this statement. It had my jaw on the linoleum. Take it away.
These agreements require employees of the Government of Canada that access these documents to sign confidentiality agreements. And why is that? Why is there much more redactions, as my colleague said, in these documents than in other documents? It's because these documents were signed at the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody was desperate for vaccines, when companies were being told to rush vaccine production, do testing in an unprecedented way, in a way they normally don't do it. So these companies were exposed to way higher liability, putting their products on the market than they normally would, because they didn't do the type of testing that normally takes these drugs years to come to market. They did it all in less than a year. So that's why these companies said, if I'm going to deliver you this product that I haven't tested in my normal way, I want to have different conditions. And with countries around the world competing with each other to get these, the countries had less leverage than they normally do. For example, if we were entering into flu vaccine contracts or monkeypox contracts or other things that were normally available, this would be a different issue. But these are already signed. They were signed at a time the government didn't have that leverage in negotiations. We just wanted to sign as many vaccine contracts with as many producers as possible because Canadians were desperate for vaccines. And in the end, it worked out. We got vaccines, and we were one of the countries that got to vaccinate everybody the fastest.
Yeah, a lot to dissect there. Basically, what Anthony was advocating is that all the members of Parliament must sign an NDA, meaning a non-disclosure agreement, when it comes to the vaccines. Who in blue hell does this guy think he is? The government works for us, not the other way around. We are the taxpayer. We fund them. We don't want governance done in secrecy behind closed doors, especially with an experimental vaccine.
Yeah.
And when he says this line, everybody was desperate for vaccines, end quote. Everybody, Anthony? Everybody? You mean including people that lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods, lost their businesses because they wouldn't get double jabbed plus boosters? Were they desperate for these vaccines? I think they were ahead of the curve. I think there's a lot of people, Drea, because I hear from them, that got the vaccines, typically through coercion. Either you're going to get the jab or lose your job. And they're really, really suffering buyer's remorse right now. But let's concentrate on the main thing here. MPs signing non-disclosure agreements with Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. This is disgraceful.
This is such a scandal, and every word he said was a scandal to me, anyways. When you're hearing it, and I'm gonna go back to the vaccine because anybody who said this was experimental or whatnot was a conspiracy theorist. And you have him saying, "Well, the Canadians, they really wanted it. They were desperate to have it, so we rushed everything, and then everything needs to be redacted in that conversation." That is insane. How is that safe and effective? And oh my gosh, there's so much. That was actually the first time I've seen it. I'm still a little in shock. I'm going to have to watch it again. But making deals like that with Big Pharma, this is what he is proposing. And I'm sure there are some MPs, especially in the Liberal Party, who would like to do something like that because they were a part of rushing it out. But everything, even in the beginning, the average person, even the ones who maybe willingly got the shot, I think everybody was a little confused to hear it's no longer just 2 weeks. It's just until we get this rush vaccine. I think everybody for a moment went, oh, like, really? Like, that's the game plan now? And then some went along with it and others were like, this doesn't make any sense. So, and then he's talking about liability. He says that liability was one of the reasons, but my understanding is they're not liable, right? They already had that insurance that they weren't liable for what could happen. So I don't even think that that's an accurate excuse that he just gave.
Oh, 100%, Drea. And I mean, words matter. And when he says everybody, as opposed to many people, or even most people, however you want to craft it, that's clearly not true. There were still thousands of Canadians unemployed because they were coerced out of their job. They didn't bend the knee to taking an experimental vaccine. But on the subject of a non-disclosure agreement, can you imagine the precedent set? If they get away with this, Drea, how many other issues, contentious issues, are going to be decided behind closed doors as opposed to on the floor of the House of Commons? Because, we've all signed a non-disclosure agreement. This is dangerous. This is not the stuff of a democracy. This is the stuff of a dictatorship, Drea.
Anytime they want to label something as an emergency, I mean, in British Columbia, we're still under a pandemic emergency. I'm unclear if Canada is or not. But even look what happened with the truckers in the Emergencies Act. They'll call that an emergency, and there'll be all these non-disclosures about that as well. This is frightening. It really is, if this takes off. And, it's right up there with people in Parliament suggesting maybe we should, off 1-year-old babies. Like, that was so shocking to me that discussion's happening. And now you have this happening. What is happening in Canada? Why is this erosion happening so fast?
And to think this Prime Minister in 2015, when he was first elected, Drea, said that this was going to be the most transparent government in Canadian history. It is the precise opposite, and it's only getting worse. We should go on to this tweet, which I absolutely love, because it just shows you the blatant hypocrisy of the left, especially when it comes to healthcare. I don't know if Mr. Producer has it. There we go. As you can see, it's a bunch of leftist protesters outside of an eye clinic, and they're demonstrating against Premier Doug Ford's upcoming legislation to privatize, as they call it, healthcare. Drea, was it only a couple of years ago where I think they were even enacting or suggesting to enact laws that if you're a demonstrator, that you can't demonstrate outside of a hospital because this false narrative was floated. And I know it's false because I was at these demonstrations. I remember one being outside of Toronto General Hospital, that protesters were preventing patients and even doctors and nurses from entering the hospital. That was an absolute blatant lie by the mainstream media. There was nothing like that occurring. But anyways, they said, we can't have these cranks limit access to healthcare. Oh, but if it's a private healthcare institution like this eye clinic, let's get in front of the entranceway. Let's make life miserable for them. Drea, the outrageous hypocrisy at play here. Again, I'm almost without words.
Well, and there's emergencies that happen at eye clinics too. I know because I worked at one for years. Some of the ophthalmologists also work in the ER, so they have to go into, they get called if someone really needs them really fast, a detached retina or something like that. It's so hypocritical. And that same blatant lie that you said happened in the mainstream media out where you are happened in British Columbia too. There was a large protest of predominantly healthcare workers, at least that's who all the speeches were for, that came. And the mainstream media lied and said that they blocked the Vancouver General Hospital when instead they were at City Hall. And the mayor even came out and called them idiots and jerks. Mayor Kennedy at the time, Kennedy Stewart, who's not the mayor anymore. I mean, and the hate and the division. One time I went to cover a protest in New West about a boy, or sorry, I shouldn't call him a boy, a young man who was arrested for not wearing a mask. I'm getting old, so I call him a boy, for not wearing a mask in Douglas College. So he had a protest outside of Douglas College, which just so happened to be near a vaccine clinic. And the news spent the whole story like it was a protest against the clinic when it was all about the college beside it. I mean, you're right. It's so hypocritical. And it just shows people really need to watch all sources. It's painful for me to watch mainstream media, but I still want to know what's going on. I still need to understand people who watch it. Otherwise, I'm going to go, how are you even thinking what you're thinking? But people need to make sure they're getting their information, of course, from Rebel News. I mean, that goes without saying. But,
100%.
do your due diligence, because things like this can get flipped so much. And the left is full of hypocrisy in so many ways, including my body, my choice.
Oh, yeah. When it comes to terminating a baby, yeah, that's what that means, not when it comes to deciding what kind of experimental vaccine goes into your body. One last anecdote about these hospital protests. 2 summers ago, when I covered that one outside of Toronto General Hospital, completely peaceful protest. By the way, we even met some nurses that were part of the protest, if you can imagine, because they weren't on side with jabomania. And what the most compelling takeaway was that there were members of Antifa, well, Toronto Antifa, they're not Seattle Antifa. This is really the Bush Leagues. They're so wimpy and they're so easily triggered. But I digress. I'm on the grass of Toronto General Hospital. So basically, Drea, it's where nobody's going to be walking. You're going to be walking on paved walkways. Where's Toronto Antifa? With their bicycles, they're on a paved walkway. They're creating a roadblock. And the guy actually says, he recognized me and he goes, "Hey, Menzies, are you going to try to block patients from getting into the hospital?" And I go, "Oh, you're the one blocking the sidewalk, not a public sidewalk, the hospital's private sidewalk. Let's call it a walkway." I mean, what kind of delusion do these people suffer? So again, just outrageous hypocrisy from the left. It's hard to understand, Drea, that they don't see the perverse irony of it all.
No, I don't know that they take time to really think about what they're doing. I think there is just like a call to action. I mean, I've experienced this when the very few who will communicate to me about why they are, let's say, counter protesting something, they usually get a call to action and it's like a little paragraph from Facebook, and then they just come out in droves. They've taken no time to actually check to see if it's accurate or what have you. They just go with this little bit of information. So I think that has a lot to do with it. They're told what to think and what to feel, and that just sits well for them. And they're angry. It's an excuse to let your anger out, right? And not even know why or who it's directed to. We do have another chat, and there's a purple heart in it. So I think that's for me, but we'll see. It's from Aqua Skies 3636. Thank you both. So it's for both of us, okay? And Rebel News. Drea, love your toque. Oh, thank you. Where did you get it? Ooh, I think it's cheap. It's got to be cheap. I did buy it new. It was Ardene's, very cheap. Is it available anywhere, i.e. Rebel? Thank you. So yes, Alex with Rebel has already on it. He's already suggesting purple toques. I'm all for it. I said yes to purple toques in the chat, and I said purple everything, please. So hopefully check out rebelnewsstore.com soon, hopefully.
Well, thank you so much, Aquaskies 3636. And
thank you.
I should say we have one more ad we got to get to before we wrap things up, Drea. I just love the title of this ad. It's called Trudeau on Trial, if only.
Yeah, one day. One day.
I am speaking to you at a moment of grave crisis, when violent and fanatical men are attempting to destroy the unity and the freedom of Canada.
But after weeks of dangerous and unlawful activities, after weeks of people being harassed in their neighborhoods and small businesses forced to close,
As democracy flourishes in Canada,
we don't always agree, and that's okay.
because individual liberty is cherished in Canada.
Our government will always defend freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly.
It has now been demonstrated to us by a few misguided persons
After evidence of increased ideologically motivated violent extremism activity across the country,
just how fragile a democratic society can be.
it became clear that local and provincial authorities needed more tools to restore order and keep people safe.
These are matters of the utmost gravity, and I want to tell you what the government is doing to deal with them.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
The public's legitimate right to know why the government proclaimed an emergency and whether the actions it took were appropriate.
It is our view that there was no justification whatsoever to invoke the Emergencies Act.
It's so tough to watch. There's no reason for that. They were literally running the horses through the crowd.
The police came straight to me and he targeted me and he took his gun of tear gas and he actually shot me directly in my legs.
Was it worth invoking the Emergencies Act, ma'am, to trample on the rights and freedoms of Canadians?
Why do you think excessive honking means that the government should strip citizens away from their rights?
Our next and final witness is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Order à l'ordre.
Well, Dre, I call that must-see video, especially if you can go to one of the locations where we're showing this documentary in a theater. That kind of enhances the mood, I should say. But like you said, maybe one day he really will be on trial for so many things. And as a matter of fact, we're just a little over, but I should get to, or rather we should get to, what's been in the news lately regarding Trudeau and the Liberals. And it is when people say, if you were to get the ear of Prime Minister Trudeau last night, what question would you ask him? And I think it's a no-brainer. It's about what the Globe and Mail reported a few days ago, that the Chinese interfered in the federal election of 2021. This is coming from a CSIS whistleblower. And I think the key questions are, Drea, are the follows. By the way, I should say the interference was this. It was a two-pronged goal. They wanted to make sure that Justin Trudeau got a minority government, which makes me chuckle, Drea, because Justin's their man, but they want to keep blackface on a short leash. They don't want to give him a majority government, right? And secondly, take away, interfere in the campaigns of conservative candidates that had harsh views to China. And I know Aaron O'Toole is on record as saying they lost 9 seats in the last federal election due to Chinese interference. Here is my two-pronged question to Justin Trudeau, which you won't see anyone in the mainstream media ask. One, how long did you know about this Chinese interference? And secondly, Drea, were you complicit? I mean, why wouldn't you be? A, they're on Team Trudeau. They want you to get the next government. And B, we know from what he said, I think some 9 years ago before he became Prime Minister, he has a basic, he has admiration in his heart for the basic dictatorship of China in terms of getting things done. Can you imagine any future of a Western country actually saying they admire the dictatorship of China? So I think that's the question that has to be examined. And my final thought on this, and I want to hear what you have to say, Drea, Justin Trudeau is going to get to the bottom of this scandal, which is to say he's going to try to find out who the whistleblower at CSIS is.
Yeah,
he's going to shoot the messenger. He's not going. He doesn't care about the message. He's on side with that, and why wouldn't he be? Drea, what do you think of this latest outrage?
Well, you're right. This is exactly what every journalist should be asking Trudeau who gets near him. Your questions were right on point. How long did he know about this? Whether or not he was a part of the plan or not, did he know and then just sit back and it works in his favor? I mean, this is huge. Election interference. I did interview one of the MPs who believes, and the Conservative Party believes, was targeted to be ousted, and that is former MP Kenny Chiu, and we talked about it as well. And this is a huge issue, and it does we need to take this very seriously before the next election, which I would say could be the most important election in Canadian history. So, and can we trust Trudeau, the Trudeau Liberals, to do that for us? I mean, is there any alternative? Is this something that citizens can take into their own hands with sort of a public inquiry into this or something? I don't know, but this is the big leagues when it comes to things that should be of concern to everyday Canadians.
100%. And I mean, what a country to prop up. Communist China is a vile dictatorship. Right now, they are conducting a genocide against their own citizens, namely the Uyghur people that live in China. This is a country, of course, where the COVID-19 virus originated from. Think of the millions of deaths. Think of the trillions and trillions of economic damage the world over. This is the country that illegally held 2 Canadian citizens, the 2 Michaels, for hundreds and hundreds of days. And this is who you have some kind of strategic alliance with. And Justin Trudeau talks about Canadian values, and you're in bed with the Mandarins in Beijing. Unbelievable, Drea. Absolutely despicable. That's the word that comes to mind. Despicable.
Yeah. It says a lot about him. It does.
But I guess the ends justify the means, don't they? He got elected with that minority government. It may as well be a majority given Jagmeet Singh and his despicable, there's that D word again, attitude of propping up this government whenever there's a vote in the House of Commons, but then criticizing him when he's out of the House. Oh, what a two-faced liar that guy is. But we'll see what happens in the next election. What's your prediction this year, 2024 or 2025, Drea?
I'd say 2025. I hope it's 2025. I just want to say one more thing. I mean, if I'm not wrong, that election cost like $600 million, and he got pretty much the same amount of seats as before. So I don't understand what type of plan this was really, to come out with almost the exact same outcome. But anyways, just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah, well,
you're right. It was much ado about nothing. And it's so sad that, like Wiarton Willie, Aaron O'Toole saw his shadow and got spooked. Because I remember very well the first 2 weeks of that 2021 campaign. Trudeau had 2 horrible weeks in a row. And Aaron O'Toole, like I said, folks, I call him as I see it. He had 2 superb weeks in a row. And then Aaron O'Toole started talking about a gun grab and carbon taxes and flip-flopping on everything he said in the first 2 weeks. I think the idea was, we're so ahead right now. Now I just got to go liberal light and I'll get liberals to vote for me. What a horrible strategic error. Again, self-inflicted wound from this man. But why are we even talking about him? He is yesterday's man.
I know. Who's O'Toole?
Well, Drea, I think unless we have any super chats left, I don't think we do.
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, I want to thank you, my friend, for filling in for Sheila Gunn-Reid. And I want to thank Efren behind the boards doing great work. Thank you to everybody that tuned in, especially those who gave us a couple of bucks so that we can continue to keep the lights on. I'll be back in this chair, I think, with Sheila out west tomorrow. In the meantime, as always, stay safe and stay sane.
Bye, everyone.